Okay, so in this video, we're going to go through what we've learnt today content-wise, but let's look at it in a practical sense. So all I'm going to be worrying about in this practical activity is IPv6. So I'm not worried about anything to do with IPv4 with this small network. Okay, so we're going to use the router to dynamically allocate IPv6 addresses based on the MAC addresses of the PCs. So how we go about this, we're going to sort of go through some key commands, but just so we know on the PCs currently, if I hover over it, you'll notice there's no IPv6 address set, but we do have a MAC address over on the right hand side, so you should be able to see that, and also on the second PC as well. So just a small network, two PCs, a switch and a router. The router is connected to interface Gigabit Ethernet 000, and that's the only interface I'm going to focus on just to reduce the amount of time on this video. Okay, so if we go into the router first, come on into the CLI. I'm not going to go through the initial dialog, and then I'm going to start with the commands. So hopefully by now you know these basic commands at the start, and I'm going to use the tab key to auto-complete some of them. So our first key command is going to be IPv6 unicast. So again, I'm going to use the tab key to complete it. For unicast routing, that's basically telling the router that we're dealing with IPv6, so it knows, otherwise it would use the default of IPv4. Okay, so I'm going to use the interface that I mentioned previously, Gigabit Ethernet 0/0/0. Okay, so I'm using that particular port or interface number. Now, one of the key things that I must stress that we've been through today is the difference between IPv4 and IPv6. Now, IPv4, you can have one IP address per interface, but in IPv6, you can have multiple. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to configure a global address, so an address for connecting to the internet or outside the local network, and I'm going to also configure a linked local address, so one just for connections on the LAN. Okay, so I'll start with the global address first. I'm just going to make up an IP address. We use the shorthand methods that we've been through today. 64/64 is basically 64 network bits and 64 host bits. Now I'm going to enter the EUI, so unique identifier. So this is telling the router to look for the MAC addresses of devices connecting to the network and use that MAC address to form the IPv6 address. So that's EUI-64. Okay, so it's the IP global address, IPv6 global address has gone through. Now we're just going to do the link local one. So IPv6 address. Again, a bit of information from today is link local addresses start with FE80. And again, I'm just going to use a pretty standard one, and then the command is link dash local, and that one's gone through. Okay, so finally I just need to open the port up. That port is now open, and then good practice is going to be to save the config. So copy in config to start up config. Done. Okay, so we save that to the non-volatile RAM. So again, that's sort of a bit of information from previous lessons, and then we are back. We are done with the router. So I'm just sort of waiting for this to turn green. Now on the PCs, if I go to desktop and IP configuration, it's set to static by default. So we need to change that to auto config. And now you'll notice that I've got an IPv6 address. So the IPv6 auto config request has been successful on that PC. So that's a good sign. Should be the same on this one. Okay, so good. Yeah, so we've got two IP version 6 addresses there. Now, if I hover over these now to show some specific information, you'll notice that the 7618 at the end is identified in the MAC address 7618. So that's what the router is doing with the unique identifiers. It's identifying the MAC addresses of the PC and converting portions of that into the IP version 6 address. And same on the second PC, E958. Okay, so a bit of added security for IP version 6 in identifying different devices on a network. Okay, and that should be all the basic commands that you need with IP